particular thoughts on things are. And everything was moving so fast, I actually decided not to actually respond for a while. I kind of wanted to wait. Newman! Come over here. It's not a real live stream until we see Newman. Anyway, wow. What a week. Incredible. Incredible. And, it got me thinking, I'm not one of these people who said, God, how did we get here? Everybody's on the news going, oh my God, how did we get to this point? It's pretty obvious how we got to this point. Wait a minute. It's hard to take myself seriously. Newman, what are you doing? You're playing with your toy. What are you doing? Okay, obviously he doesn't seem to care about my political opinions. Anyway, so this is the obvious, inevitable conclusion of everything. I know how we got here. We got here by actually placing our loyalties to people instead of to principles and ideas. The whole premise of our country is founded off the very real truth that man is fallible and man can be corrupted. Therefore, you have to believe in a set of laws and institutions rather than the person. And instead, we seem to have crossed our wires, and everybody is somehow pledging undying fealty to Donald Trump. And he's led them down a path that is obviously dangerous. I mean, it's incredible. So, I know how we got to that point. I think everybody knows how we got to this point. We also knew it was going to end spectacularly, and we knew it was going to end with death and destruction. And my God, I still think it's going to end up with even more death and destruction. It's painful, but when I peel the layers off and I'm watching this, something struck me as both sides of the party have this element going on. So I've said this before, but I was at this dinner party and I was the only guy there who actually thought the vaccine was a good thing to take. Everybody else, very smart college graduate people, thought that there was a conspiracy potentially with the vaccine and Fauci's profiting and blah, 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 blah. And when I told them it was an mRNA vaccine, they told me, oh, that's just a theory. And I was like, mRNA is not a theory. mRNA is an actual scientific thing. No, they're just telling you that. I mean, how do you talk to people like that? You can't. I mean, if these guys are coming out of UCLA and they're with a college degree intact and they don't know what mRNA is and they believe in conspiracy theories, we're kind of all fucked. And anyways, you hear this a lot. They don't believe in this thing. They believe there's a conspiracy. And I finally told them, I said, guys, you're actually, as much as you dislike Trump and the Trumpers, you're actually just like them because you're suspending all your critical thought to believe in a conspiracy just the way they are with an election that's been stolen. You're two sides of the same coin. Wait, what is going on? What are you doing? All right. That's his way of telling me to shut up. Anyways, so you have to have some critical thinking skills here. And it's so incredibly obvious. And so part of the fallacy of having loyalty to a tribe or to a person is that you're going to find yourself defending total bullshit. You're going to be a cheerleader for bullshit. And that's the deal you made to be such a vibrant member of whatever your particular community is. But right now, the conservatives have been in power for 4 years, so they deserve the brunt of my criticism. they've allowed this to keep going, and they've allowed all this destruction to happen. And you know what? I got to say, this is shocking to me. I listened to as much conservative podcast, radio, news, and stuff as possible this week to find out what the vibe is. It's an incredible pivot. You know what they're talking about? They're not talking about the police officer who was beaten to death by an angry mob. They're not talking about the fact that you had a bunch of seditionists like breaking into the Capitol building. You're not talking about any of the violence that's been propagated and inspired by the chief law enforcement officer of the country. You know what they're talking about? They're talking about, oh my God, I'm so upset. Donald Trump has lost his Twitter account. This is incredible. They're like, do you know what's happening here? Big tech, big brother, they're taking over. They're taking your civil liberties. Look at this. My God, the president has lost his Twitter account, his Instagram, his Facebook. What is this country coming to? My God. Shut up. Shut up. The man has the biggest bully pulpit in the world with or without those forums. Okay? And those are all private companies, and they have the right to shut down whoever they want. Okay? Not all of us are the president of the United States and can walk into the press room, say something, and have it circulated all over the world. He still can do that. And so he can do that. Why doesn't he do that? I don't want to hear the whining about civil liberties because it's bullshit. And you also have a civil liberty to actually function as an elected representative and execute a sacred process of certifying the vote without fearing for your life. Okay? That's a civil liberty. What about that? It's so frustrating. So I just have to describe my interaction with a particular relative of mine. And we have kept an ongoing dialogue despite our political differences, which I think in it of itself is an achievement. And it requires sometimes all of us eat a little crow and laugh at ourselves. But just when I thought it was over, we were going to find a plateau, we found ourselves in another argument. And it's unfortunate because, I love this guy to death. He's awesome. I'm not going to say who he is in my family, but, he has a big heart and all that stuff. But he's sitting there and he's telling me that this is a massive, egregious violation of civil liberties, that his president's had the bully pulpit taken away from him. Come on, man. Is that really what you're talking about? You're really talking about this shit? I mean, seriously? So, I just feel a little bit exasperated. And I'm exasperated because there's actually no foundation for critical thinking anymore. This is actually a place we have gotten to where we are actually biased, so innately biased, and we just look for information to reinforce our bias. Now, I know confirmation bias and all that stuff. Okay. How pissed off should I be about this? Well, I'm pissed off because it's leading to death and destruction and a total breakdown of our system. And they're going to have to start teaching internet literacy programs in school and critical thinking classes, and they're going to have to do it at a very early age because we can't afford to have people that have college degrees who are incapable of critical thinking. Okay? So here's two fascinating experiences. One is relative. Well, they blew up, the guy who blew himself up in Nashville was trying to blow up the AT&T building to hide the massive voter fraud that went on. Oh, interesting. I mean, let's just say that were true. First of all, fabulously ineffective, and he died in the process of doing it. Bad career move. I would say, so how do I deal with this? Well, the first thing I say, well, you're in Tennessee. Tennessee went for Trump. I don't think anybody's concerned with the count in Tennessee. True. Okay. Annoying detail. The second thing, Dominion voting systems does not keep their records with AT&T. Annoying detail. I don't want to hear it. And if they did keep it with AT&T, it would be in a cloud, so you could destroy the building and still all the records would still be there. Annoying detail. Don't want to hear it. This is the closed loop. This is there's a term, and it's a fascinating term, and there's a couple guys I'm going to quote from, because there's a couple guys with some really good podcasts. One is Sam Harris, who I like a lot. This other guy, David Pakman's pretty good, and he brings up this term dogmatic logic, which means that you can't, it's a closed loop, it's a closed logic. You can't actually penetrate it with outside information. Like, for example, the Bible. Well, the Bible says the world was made in 7 days, therefore it was made in 7 days, because this text is sacred. It's a sacred text. You can't question the text. Well, that's an example apparently of dogmatic logic, and I like that term. It makes me feel smart. And not so dogmatic, but hey. Anyway, this is the fascinating thing. He shows Lou Dobbs on CNN Business, and Lou Dobbs is like, it is so doggone frustrating because we know there's massive voter fraud. We know all these states with massive voter fraud, but for gosh darn it, we're having a Jiminy Cricket's time of finding proof. Well, no kidding. That would be the point, and this is the guy David Pakman who shows it, because that would be the point where you go, well, maybe my theory is incorrect. If I'm having such a hard time finding information that backs up what I'm thinking, maybe what I'm thinking is incorrect and inaccurate and everything else. Well, that is unfortunately not his moment of revelation. He just goes further down the road, not realizing the massive foolishness that he's exposing the world to. And look this is America. You have a God-given, sanctified American right to make a complete and total ass of yourself. And clearly that is a right that the conservatives are exercising quite vigorously. And I find it interesting because formerly and historically, the liberals were really good at this. The liberals were really good at just saying massively stupid and hypocritical things. But they've been surpassed by the conservatives. Like if hypocrisy and stupidity were a basketball game and we're puttering around, suddenly like the conservatives are like the Michael Jordan that just entered game. And you're like, wow, my God, that guy jumped from the top of the key and slam dunked. The conservatives can do hypocrisy better than literally anyone. They can light your house on fire and then turn around and drive over to the front with their fire truck and be the fireman and claim they're there to save the day. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. So I'm a little frustrated by this. I'm sure everybody's a little frustrated by this. If anybody actually thinks that I've got it all wrong and they've got a bunch of really fascinating data and information, please come my way. I'd be happy to talk to you right now. But in the meantime, this really has to stop, and we have to get to a place of back to some place of critical thinking. We have to do it, and I don't know how we're going to do it, except that I'm trying to read right now what we got going. Let's see what kind of questions we got here. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Well, good things like, hi, how are you doing today? I'm great. Hey, my nephew's there, Conway. Conway, how's it going, pal? You're safe in London. Well, you're quarantined in London. You're missing all the excitement here in the revolutionary land. anyways, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to I would love to talk to somebody who disagrees with me and thinks they have some actual, data, statistics that prove me otherwise. It's very hard to prove a negative, by the way. So if I say, there are a lot of aliens on the planet, and my response is, well, I can't find any evidence of it. Aha! That is exactly my point. Then there's a lot of aliens because they're hiding from us. So that's what's really happened here. And that was that Lou Dobbs moment where he's like, we can't find any, we know there's a lot of voter fraud. We just can't find any gosh darn evidence for it. And therefore, all that missing information is a clear sign that somebody's trying to hide things from us. How moronic can you be? How unjournalistic can you be to reach that point? Okay. Somebody's getting the vaccine first shot. Way to go. Get the vaccine. Anybody who thinks that the vaccine's not going to work for them, give me a break. All right? It's going to be fine. Now, listen, if you don't want to get it, you don't want to get it. That's fine. But I don't think anything's going to happen. It's an mRNA vaccine. I don't want to get into the science of it, but let's just say eventually I will, because that makes for a whole nother interesting little live stream. Let's see. Let's see what we got here. I have a remarkably international audience, so I apologize if it's about American politics. But, man, we put on a good show, don't we? Okay, let's see. Somebody come along and answer me, ask me a question. I should go back through this and look for it. But anyway, so while I'm waiting for a question, there's a couple guys. There's a guy named Ben Shapiro who talks so fast. I almost feel like he's certainly turned the speed knob up on his sound machine, or he's inhaling helium or something. Because he talks like this. He goes, I'm Ben Shapiro, and this is Ben Shapiro. He speaks so fast I can't even do it. It's like he's yanked and just completely tweaking on Adderall or something. Anyways, Don Bongino is the guy's name. I just can't even. It's hard for me to say the name. Sean Hannity, all these guys, they're all sitting there trying to pivot away from this mess, this monster they've fed, and they're trying to pretend to make it about civil rights and that they've lost their platform on Twitter. So, that's a fascinating little pivot. It's not going to work for me. So somebody asked me about the podcast. Now, I just want to say I've had a little setback on the podcast. We've lost our podcast studio. So I'm busy working to replace that. And I'll get back to you guys unless you know exactly what's happening with that. That's a little bit of a complication there. Anyway, impeach or 25th Amendment? Well, I obviously think they should invoke the 25th Amendment. That way, we get rid of them right away. And at least the Republicans take a little bit of it on the chin and realize that they're having to solve the problem. They created this problem, and they're responsible for helping solve the problem. Anyway, let's see here. What else? How do you un-brainwash a family member? Okay, this is fascinating. Now, right away, when you're having this discussion with somebody and you're saying they're brainwashed, well, that's a tough place to come from, because people are going to be pretty reluctant to thinking that they somehow know the truth and you don't. And you're actually saying, well, I know the truth and you don't. So how do you get to this point? Well, this is complicated, right? So, for example, they have deprogramming systems that when people come out of a cult, you literally get deprogrammed. We've never had a kind of national cult to deprogram ourselves from, other than maybe McCarthyism or something. But that's what this is. It requires a deprogramming of some sort. And I don't know how we're going to do it. I think having Trump fade into the background and become increasingly irrelevant as he throws tantrums by himself is going to be part of the solution. Out of sight, out of mind. And we'll see what happens as people step further and further away from this madness. I think maybe they'll realize that they've done the wrong thing. But here's what I want to ask. Why does everybody go to such great lengths to defend Donald Trump? Like, what has he done for you in particular? Well, I can't say who my relative is, but I don't know what he's done for him. I have no idea. And then when I say that this is all madness and we have to, get people that can think critically to take over the government and everything else, he calls me an elitist. An elitist. Like, I guess I didn't know that actually thinking was an elite thing. But if it is, great, I'm an elitist. So the irony, too, is that this particular relative lives in a very elite circumstances, so it's rich that I'm called an elitist. Nonetheless, I guess he's referring to some kind of intellectual snobbery, but it really isn't. Just because they're anti-intellectual and anti-critical thinking does not make you an intellectual snob. It makes you a man with common sense that's bringing up really bothersome details. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? Let's see what we got. I'm trying to find the little question format. Do you think financial inequality played a part in the rise of Trump? That's an interesting question. Financial inequality is probably the single biggest issue right now in the United States, and it goes relatively unaddressed. The equity players and the non-equity players, the gap is growing so large that, this has to be dealt with. Now, interestingly enough, the populist kind of angry populist mobs that Trump inspires, they're angry on multiple levels, financial being one of them, and then racial being another one. They think this is a white country and they want their white country back. And who are all these other people of color telling us about our country? It's my country. That's really where a lot of them are coming from. And when you're financially strapped and you're looking for an enemy, you can find one really easily. And they're legitimate ones. And so on the left, there's a populism. It's an anti-corporate, anti-business thing. And it loops all the way back to the right wing, too. What is so sad about the right-wing protesters is they don't realize what incredible idiots they are, and they're being used as pawns, because while all this is happening, they're actually supporting the most pro-corrupt, pro-business, pro-corporate administration in decades that doesn't even believe in any type of regulation. I mean, they really don't. It's incredible. One example. Donald Trump tried to put a guy in charge of the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, which takes care of all the weather. Weather is a very important thing. And the guy he tried to put in charge was the guy who owns the Weather Channel. So what does the guy from the Weather Channel say? Well, we have all this copious, endless amounts of weather data. What do we do with it? We make sure it all goes through the Weather Channel first. He actually did that. He actually thought he could do this. It was incredible. And finally, somebody obviously got to him somehow, and they realized, oh, you look like an idiot. So then he said, okay, I get it. I'll have to pivot. What we need to do is all this weather-related data needs to go through private companies first. Then the public can have it. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So I don't want to hear this nonsense that somehow Trump is like a corporate anti-corporate guy. Bullshit. Anyways, let's find out what we got going here. How do you deal with billionaires like Elon and Bezos and extreme income disparity? Well, that's partly what we were discussing. Look at Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Here's what I want to say. I believe that people should be rewarded I believe in the profit incentive. I actually do. I believe in capitalism. And I believe that people that bring immense value should be immensely rewarded. I actually think they've brought a tremendous amount of value and disruption. I don't think it's easy to point them out and say, look at that disparity. I think the larger thing is all the people you're not looking at and you don't know that are immensely wealthy, that make up a much bigger chunk than the big individual tycoon. And, those are the people that are supporting this thing. One guy, I don't believe Bill Gates is evil and Jeff Bezos is evil and Elon Musk is evil. Kind of to the contrary. And I actually think Bill Gates is, we can argue all sorts of things about Bill Gates. It's a complicated thing, but I'm fascinated by his charitable work. It's very effective. I don't care what his intentions are. His intentions are his intentions, but what he gets done is governments aren't being able to achieve anything nearly as successfully as he is. So, hey man, I'm not really on board with like the anti-tycoon thing so much, but the disparity here. Let's talk about it. It's crazy. A school teacher makes $50,000-$60,000 a year. She gets taxed in full. But a millionaire who has real estate can roll his taxes over. We're rewarding the equity players at the cost of the wage earner. And so the wage earner is totally disproportionately carrying the brunt of things. And they will never get a shot at the equity game because they're living in margins that will never allow that. So we have to figure something out. And a lot of people make the counter argument. They say, well, 5% of the population makes up 50% of the tax income. Okay. Let's assume that's true, which is really not. They all have corporations, so it's a bunch of nonsense. But let's assume that's true. Well, that's still, if you look at the level of income they have and what they're paying, it's much more unfair to the school teacher. It's a hell of a lot more unfair. So, hey. Anyways, I got another question here. Let's answer that question. What would you say that you were a social democrat or a socialist or maybe even a supporter of capitalism? Well, it's interesting you asked that. So somebody just asked this question. I'm not a social democrat. You want to know what I am? I'm a former, highly disgruntled, exiled, probably tarred and feathered and exiled Republican. I actually came from a relatively conservative background, and there are good things and bad things about that. But I'm not really on board with everything the liberals say. And, like I said, the liberals used to be really good at saying really stupid, wildly hypocritical things, and the conservatives have just surpassed them. The conservatives have whored themselves. I just can't even go there. And they really have. It's disgusting. What do you think of Cruz and Hawley? I mean, they're disgusting. They're disgusting. Ted Cruz. This is interesting. Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, senators, voting not to certify the election. They always say, well, Ted Cruz went to Harvard Law School, and Josh Hawley went to like Oxford and Harvard or Yale. I don't know. They always bring up these Ivy League monikers here, where they went and all that stuff. And you know what? It proves? It proves that it doesn't matter, that clearly going to an Ivy League school is not going to give you a set of ethics. To the contrary, perhaps. Maybe that's where the devil sends their children to run the world. That is a total failure of the Ivy League system. I mean, I'm telling you, I think the Harvard Business School is made a mess of things. They're sending these very smart, very ambitious, super motivated people to grind and chisel away at basic fucking decency. So I'm sorry, not a big believer in like this Ivy League crap. I don't care. Obviously, Ivy League does not mean anything to me. It just means that you're actually like more disgusting than you would have been if you didn't even go to school, if you ask me, because you know better. You know better. You know the argument. You're being so disingenuous. And speaking of disingenuous, let's remember who's ever out there that's a Trump supporter. Your man doesn't believe he won the election. He doesn't believe it. He knows he didn't win the election. He knows that. But if he admits that, would he have been able to raise $250 million in a slush fund? No way. Absolutely not. So that's how that works. All right. Let's see here. What do we got? What do we have? Here's another one. Okay, I'm looking at these questions here. How are things at the Malibu Foundation? Things are going very well. I'm very happy and proud about the work we've been able to do. We can't solve the larger problems. Can Trump run for president again even if the 25th Amendment is evoked? The answer is yes. And therein lies an interesting problem. So if they invoke the 25th Amendment, yeah, he's physically removed, but it doesn't bar him from running again. However, the second impeachment process, if he's convicted in the Senate, will bar him from running again. But there's an argument that says if he's currently not in office and the impeachment trial goes on, you can't impeach a president who's no longer in office. Unprecedented times. We're in new territory. Who knows what the hell is going on there? It sounds to me like, you're going to have to do something. But do you guys think, seriously, we're sitting around arresting these people as we should, but the guys who inspired them are sitting around on their fat fucking asses, like Donald Trump Jr. and Donald Trump Sr. and Rudolph Giuliani sitting on their big fat asses, having their big fat meals, like enjoying life. They're not paying any price for this. I think this is crazy. Oh yeah, this is interesting. From the UK. Lots of UK politicians are often from Oxford and Cambridge. Yeah, definitely. Often schooling at Eton. Yes, that's true. And it creates a huge gap between the politicians and understanding of the people they represent. I completely agree with you. The only way to really deal with that is that those institutions are bringing in people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and arming them with that level of education. And in theory, they go back and they help people out. You're hoping they do that. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I actually think that Harvard has done, some of the Ivy League schools have done a pretty good job, actually. Like half their incoming freshmen are on scholarship. So there's an attempt to do this. There's definitely an attempt. But if you're a guy like Josh Hawley and you're sitting there raising your fist and after they break into the thing, you still go back onto the Senate floor and you vote to oppose certification of the election. It's just fucking bananas, guys. It's crazy. And I just urge everybody to actually think about things. What is the initial assumption they have? If your initial assumption, you're coming into an argument like Lou Dobbs, going, we know there's massive voter fraud. We just can't find the evidence. Well, the minute you have that assumption, you're already in super sketchy territory. You're in the wrong place. It's the upside down version of the scientific method. Finding evidence, coming up with a conclusion. They're the opposite. Come up with a conclusion, search everywhere for evidence. And if you can't find it, that's evidence of a conspiracy. Yeah. Again, dogmatic logic which means you cannot penetrate it. There's no outside. They're not receptive to any outside argument. They've literally created a rhetorical and logical bubble that can't be penetrated. And how do you do that? You pledge your loyalty to a human being instead of a set of ideas and principles. That's really what happens. And there's somebody from Hungary right now, and I'm saying you guys in Hungary, you're dealing with your jackass president. We're dealing with our jackass president. Maybe they should have a convention of jackasses. Yes. Anyways, I think I've put Newman to sleep. It's probably time for me to get going here. I'm baking in the sun. Okay. What's this say? If I have $1 million, I just can't find it. It's a global banking conspiracy that can't find it. You're absolutely right. I think that's pretty good. I like that. And by the way, we have glossed over this really fascinating aspect, which is before this riot, Trump was caught on the phone asking for like all I need is 11,780 votes. Come on. It's like nothing. I mean, come on, you can do it. I mean, I agree. It's such a simple request. What the hell's wrong with that guy? I mean, where's his loyalty? It's incredible. So we'll see where this all goes. I made some predictions. I can't read them because they're on my phone, but I posted them the other day. One was that, this was before the election. I said that he's going to lose. He's going to contest the election. He still loses. He creates havoc. He creates violence. He incites violence. And then I said Mike Pence and some other reformed political whores will invoke the 25th Amendment. I don't think that may happen at this point, which is too bad because I really want to be I want this to be across the board, like a great prediction I've made. But I should have said Trump will be removed from office. How is he removed? I don't know. But I think that you're looking at the next week to be one of the most interesting weeks in American political history, for sure. And I think he's going to try to pardon himself. He's certainly going to try to pardon all of his kids. So can you pardon yourself for crimes that have yet to be articulated, that you've yet to be convicted of? Sadly, there is some history for this. Sadly. And the Nixon pardon. Nixon had not been convicted yet, and he was pardoned. So there is some unfortunate precedent that says you might be able to pardon somebody preemptively. That's pretty scary. Now, the second question, can you pardon yourself? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to hold up. It may go to the Supreme Court, but I don't think the Supreme Court's going to hold that up. Because in the end of the day, we know that this country was specifically designed to make people accountable so that one man, is not above the law, right? That one person is not running our country, that it's a set of laws and a set of institutions balancing the fallible man. So I would be shocked to see if that actually happens. I'm going to answer a couple more questions, and we'll see what happens here. Let's see. Any opinion on the stupid conspiracy theory that Trump is nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, I don't think he will be, but I will say this to the mystery relative that I've been having conversations with about Trump. I feel grudgingly like I have to say at least one or two positive things before I lay in on my negative things about Trump. I'm going to give him credit for one thing. Getting some Middle Eastern countries to recognize Israel is potentially a very big thing. And it potentially could set off a series of motions that lead to possibly some form of semi-stable peace in the Middle East. And so I have to give a little bit of credit there where credit is due. Now, did he bribe those countries with all sorts of jets and deals? Yeah, okay, he did. But we'll see where that goes. That's the so-called inspiration for the Nobel Peace Prize. I would still be shocked if they do that. I don't think that's going to happen. So, we'll see. Thoughts on Hunter Biden accusations. I mean, listen, I think that if Bill Barr says there was nothing there and he can't find anything, he's not appointing a special prosecutor, nobody around other than Donald Trump, Bill Barr would be the next guy in line that would love to hang Hunter Biden by his testicles. He would love it. Nothing would make him happier. So if he can't find it, he can't find it. By the way, incredibly convenient exit, Bill Barr. Clearly he knew that the shit was going to go down. He's like, I'm out of here. I've done my dirty work, I've assassinated the guy and laid the body on the bathroom, but you guys are going to have to chop him up and, get rid of the body and scrub the blood off the floor. So, very clever, Bill Barr. What I thought would happen with some people, and I want to end on a positive note here. I do have friends that are Trump supporters. We try to keep it light and fun and have a good, poke around a little bit to the extent that that's even possible. But, I will give some of them credit. I've been surprised at how pensive they are and semi-self-reflective about this. And they're like, yeah, my buddy is like, we're the Law and Order party. I can't watch my party destroy this type of things. This is not good. And he is a absolutely fervent Trump supporter. So I'm happy to see that, but it's a shame that it came to this, because the truth is, we knew it was coming to this. We knew it. Everybody knew it. We all knew it. So that's a little sad. And maybe what's obvious to one of us is not obvious to the other. And then somebody just asked me about statehood for D.C. Well, it's a compelling argument, and I'd have to wait until I have a real strong opinion on that. But here are the benefits of statehood for D.C. One is they can do something like, during this thing, they can actually call in the National Guard themselves. That would help. They don't have to go through this labyrinthine chain of command to get protection. But the other thing is, you would have 2 more U.S. senators who most invariably would be Democrats. You also would have potentially, you'd have a couple more representatives. But I don't know strong enough arguments against that. I know why we didn't make D.C. a statehood. There was fear that D.C., if it was a statehood, they could hold the U.S. government hostage for whatever reasons. And I can't say I have a really strong, well-informed opinion about it yet. Okay, so look, I'm seeing people here saying that people they know that were for Trump have pivoted away from Trump, and I'm seeing a lot of that. But you can't really go crashing into into Congress, breaking windows, threatening to hang the vice president, and claim that you're a patriot. And this is what I find so funny. Michael Pence, if you're Michael Pence and you've just been so sycophantically loyal to Donald Trump, and you obviously are being asked to break the law now for him, and you can't do it. And what he does is he sends an angry mob to break into the building you're in, and they're all screaming, "Hang Mike Pence." Okay? And there's a certain kind of just fascinating karmic justice to all this. But he doesn't even have the balls to invoke the 25th Amendment after that. Now, that is a man who clearly is missing whatever his manhood parts are that would allow him to do what any normal man would do. Oh, or woman, excuse me. In fact, if it was a woman, I wouldn't worry about it. She'd probably just invoke the 25th Amendment, and she'd not be worried about it. But we're dealing with clearly a pistol-whipped little bitch. Mike Pence can't do the right thing. Sorry, pal. Sorry. So, is it a come-to-Jesus moment for all the Trump supporters? I don't think so, unfortunately. I think it's a point they do not want to give the satisfaction to those of us who have been saying this is going to end in disaster those of us in 2016 that said this will invariably end in a fucking disaster. This will not end well. They don't want us having the satisfaction of saying that. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. I don't get satisfaction out of saying this is what happened. I would much rather have been wrong about this. Seriously, there's no satisfaction in tragedy. But don't deny fucking reality here, man. You guys have fed a monster, and there's certain invariably we knew it was going here, and you guys have to take some responsibility, and you got to eat some crow. And does that sound like you need to be humiliated? No. I mean, I'm not really sure that's really necessary. I'm impressed with the incredible patience and diplomatic kind of just the diplomatic skills that Joe Biden is showing by saying he's avoiding the impeachment issue. He knows, he's like, look, man, I can't govern this country if I piss off all the Trump supporters. You know, it's like 45% of the country, the voting public, and I need to work with them, and I don't want to humiliate them and make them feel like crap. I want to just work and get problems solved. So I give him a lot of credit because he's got a lot of people on his side calling for blood and wanting people to be humiliated. And, okay, here's the most cogent phrase of the day. A president who doesn't drink beer is not a good president. You know, Alexander Hoffer, you're absolutely right. And I think it's said Hofa. Alexander Hofa. That should be the problem right there. And I'm going to end on a really funny visual. I just thought to myself, I was with a friend of mine who had a puppy today, and I was thinking, God, wouldn't it be funny if, like, this angry mob runs into Congress, they're screaming, yelling blood, they got the Confederate flags, the Auschwitz shirts, hang my pants, blah, and, like, a bunch of puppies were released into the room. I just think it would be really funny because it was like, they would have to be like, yeah, all right, hold on one sec. That's all we need. We just need a gaggle of puppies. We don't need more police. Just a gaggle of puppies. Just drop them like a strategic bomb under a tense situation, and their little puppiness will defuse the situation. Oh, my little Fergoonie is on. Hi, Fergushki. I tried to get him on with me, but he won't. I know that. All right, guys. It's been fun talking, and I hope everybody stays well. And next time, we're going to grab a Trump supporter, and I'm respectful all the time. And wait, Newman! Come here. Say goodbye. Say goodbye. Oh, yeah. See? It's all about puppies. It's all about puppies. We know life will get better with puppies. Cheerio.